Hallo miteinander, I'm Geshidi6, and this is Ephemeral Unnatural Balance. We're looking at a game that is more significant than you would first think. Years before it came out, this title had a thread on the Maidens of the Kaleidoscope Touhou forum for development feedback. As a member, I like to think of it as partially our forum's game. Of course, the project ultimately belongs more to EXPorygon and their team than to anyone else. We'll get into what else makes it more special than your average fan game as we play. We are aiming for the usual normal mode 1cc. The playable characters are Rinsatsuki, Kasen Ibaraki, and Tokiko. Yes, Tokiko, who is a magnificent trash talker in this story. But since I'm much better as the canonical only in code Rin, the Kirin is our choice. As so often, we skip the first 4 stages for this video. This is especially sensible because of Ephemeral Unnatural Balance's main gimmick, which only shows its full potential once the patterns get tough. But let's start with something more basic, the story. Power levels in Gensokyo have become reversed. It is an incident Reimu cannot tackle, as she is now wimpier than a fairy, hence why you play as one of 3 underdogs. We've just met Yamame Kurodani. Most opponents are either low-level yokai like her, or servant characters. This is really kind of clever, because the official games usually underutilize these folks. Fanworks like this can remedy that. Yamame shoots web traps to aid the stage enemies. If you disturb them, they'll spawn extra bullets a little later. Those bullets barely move, but there'll be a lot of them. The webbing is completely static, but you shouldn't let that allow you to underestimate this hazard. Oh no. In combination with fast enemies, it's actually quite dangerous, even if the webs themselves don't kill outright. If danmaku restricts your movement to certain parts of the screen and just doesn't go away, it can be really annoying. Anyone who has fought Yomu in Touhou 9 will agree to this. There's another reason you want to leave the web circles intact. After a long enough time, they'll turn into life pieces. So you might have noticed that from time to time, the game's colors turn to negative. That is a tool we have. It's called Discord mode. Not to be confused with a Discord mod, who someone as petite as Rin should be most wary of. Discord mode, however, is something very welcome. It eats up a resource called balance, but so long as it's activated, you'll have a guaranteed death bomb should you get hit, provided you still have a bomb in stock. That could be helpful on this current spell card, which is not one I handle easily. Spider Silk Sticky Web is a pattern where you must go from being patient and precise one moment to quick and acute the next. The reason we used a regular bomb on it earlier instead of Discord mode is that an automatic death bomb costs 2 bombs at once, if you have that many. Also, we were fairly low on balance energy. The boss for this stage is Kisume, and that brings us to an extraordinary trait of Ephemeral Unnatural Balance. We'll shorten that name to EUB from now on. As I was saying, EUB always switches the boss and mid-boss from the official games. Not only that, but the choice of opponents travels down Gensokyo's food chain as the game goes on. That's how a complete nobody like Kisume becomes a stage 5 boss. What sounds silly is used to EUB's advantage. So much is done with Bucket Loli's potential for pattern ideas. These first few spells and non-spells are all about Kisume suddenly closing in and getting the literal drop on you. The most creative ones are still to come, look forward to them. A few words on who we're playing as. Rin Satsuki is the substitute for the standard option that is usually Reimu. She's nice and slow while focused, and unfocused shots are homing on the higher power levels. We've reached the spell card Meyer Silas trait. This one I'm fairly comfortable with, but at first it will seem more harmless than it is. The globes are no problem to dodge in and of themselves. Whenever Kisume reaches the edges of the screen though, 3 lasers are shot and you'll need to move fast. This trick shouldn't surprise you more than once, and if you've gotten enough distance to the boss in time, it's fairly forgiving. And that's a clean capture. I'm noticing we are really underutilizing Discord mode right now. Just then we should have used it instead of the bomb. On the other hand, it can actually be a double-edged sword. We might find out why as the video goes on. The spell card Catchment Stem the Tide is another fun one. The floating buckets actually shelter you from the bullet rain. You have to stay under them as much as possible, as you can't just skip through the deadly downpour. Ambush Falling Well Bucket is introduced by a nuclear klaxon akin to Oku's, and that's kind of justified. It's a nasty one. First of all, this is a survival spell card. You don't need to shoot at Kisume, you don't even want to be near her. There's a secondary use of Discord mode that can be a lifesaver here. Watch this. We deleted those bullets. Yes, Discord mode is a sort of weaker, less valuable bomb. The jargon calls this a flash bomb. Discord mode can be deactivated after a cooldown of 3 or 4 seconds. That's short enough to flash bomb in a steady rhythm, should you need to. What you shouldn't do is leave Discord mode on when you're out of bombs and then get hit stupidly. I really can't say what happened there, it looked like I just zoned out. One thing you need to know is that the game actually gets harder while Discord mode is active. Yup, more bullets are produced and they're accelerated. That's what I meant with that double-edged sword. Kisume's final spell card wouldn't usually be the worst, but it marks an absolute low point of the run so far. That's the second unnecessary death on it, dreadful. We got to stage 5 with 7 lives, we are left with 5. Let's hope it doesn't get any worse. Similar to Touhou 8, EUB has optional bonus spell cards at the end of its stages. The only condition to get these so-called encore spells is to have enough balance energy left. 40% is enough, I believe. As scary as this looks, we're under no risk. We did not lose a life there, but had we persevered, we could have earned a few life pieces. So I guess that does make it a small loss, one we should be able to stomach. On to stage 6. One thing your typical final stage in Touhou seems to do is that the way to the boss is short, but oh does it shift into top gear immediately. The beginning part here is perfect for flash bombing. I wouldn't know how not to get cornered by all these arrows and knives. We have a sort of pre-mini-boss, a nameless fairy with numerous vassals. Doesn't qualify as a real one, but she is important enough for a visible health bar. She's nevertheless pretty ruthless, as the knives she shoots out kill her own minions. This sort of friendly fire produces extra bullets, but if you're the one to blast the little fairies out of the sky, this won't happen. Spreading out your damage a little is recommended. The Prism River Sisters are the real deal. The artist of EUB gave Merlin a pretty terrible haircut. Oh well, I still like her the best of the 3. Once again, certain traditions are upheld, as in the stage 6 mid-boss is a notorious bomb eater. Somehow the trio doesn't become that much meaner during Discord mode, so a strategy of prolonged use is in order. It was worth it. In the early game, you want to leave Discord mode on for as long as possible, as it produces life pieces over time. So long as you can afford it, you've got to play risky with it. And here's our villain. It's Lily White? Yes, the most unsuitable fairy imaginable. She's holding quite the pompous speech. I have a headcanon for her that she does not talk at all. She just squeaks. The warning signal for her arrival in Touhou 9 is her only means of communication. I must admit, I didn't come up with the idea. The Touhou M1 Grand Prix has made that joke. I've said many times that I'm a sucker for that piece of fandom. This incarnation of Lily White, however, has not only proven to us that she can form words, she is going to show us that she can be as intimidating a mastermind as a Remilia or any other big bad. First though, she's going to throw some cannon fodder at us. The formation of these fairy servants reminds me of a board from the good old Space Invaders. Now that they're disposed of, this new upstart Queen of Fairies gets the limelight. Her first spell card, Spring Up Precise Volley, has much in common with Lily's original Touhou 7 pattern. What's most important is to advance to the center of the screen during its second half. Staying near the bottom, as is so standard, would make this nearly unmanageable. This was my first capture of it during story mode, perhaps because I'm only just catching on to the trick. The next few patterns are fairly self-explanatory, so I want to mention a few more general things about EUB. It is actually a Western production. Very few of the fan games coming out on Steam are, and as said in the beginning of the video, it is somewhat of a community effort. I've seen familiar names in the credits. The biggest one I could recognize belongs to the YouTuber Spaztique, someone most Touhou fans will have at least heard of. I believe they helped with the music here. Another interesting fact about EUB is that it was made with the danmaku engine. While not made by a Westerner, it is very popular on Western fan forums, such as the Maidens of the Kaleidoscope. EUB definitely proves that this tool can be used to create a feel very authentic to the official games. I think it's time to switch the commentary back to the action, as this spell card is quite unusual. Fairy Force, covering Crossfire, is not just special in that it will kill you if handled improperly, but it's also notorious for ending by timeout. The reason being that the time frame to deal damage to Lily is very small for each pattern cycle. You must try to get back to the center as quickly as you can, and this works best with a flash bomb right here. If you delete the bullet cluster at that moment, you can put a real dent in that health bar. Entering Discord mode, by the way, does not forfeit a spell card capture, except of course if that automatic death bomb happens. Fairies sure are disposable in this game. Casualty Friendly Fire has Lily sacrificing underlings for extra bullets. The minions themselves are not dangerous until they blow up, of which you will be warned in time. Just after they burst into fireballs is an ideal time for a flash bomb. Of course, we are on 17% balance, so that was out of the question. On to the final spell card. It's called Bloom Palace. I guess arrogant Lily has made herself the lady of a palace. She is not the only girl to show a different side of herself in EUB. My favorite new interpretation is that of Aya and Momiji during stage 3. The pecking order between the two has been switched. Aya is now weak, and Momiji the meanest and bossiest you've ever seen her. Aya isn't really adapting, so the two constantly squabble. Tokiko will tell them to rent a room and get married already. Bloom Palace turns out to be quite long-lasting. That's because it's made up of 4 distinct phases. 2 pit you against fairy minions, the rest are about dodging slow, although numerous bullets. The timer was long for it to be over so quickly. Or is it? Well, we exploded Lily White, but there's someone else. Actually, it's just a change of wardrobe. But hey, Batman is also just a wardrobe change away from Bruce Wayne. Enter Lily Black and her last resort, capital city of flowers, Hydrangea. This is a survival spell card with an 88-second duration. We could stop shooting if we wanted to, but I'm not used to that. It shouldn't matter if firing isn't detrimental. This pattern might feel very familiar to you. That's right, it's a homage to Yuyuko's Resurrection Butterfly. That's very fitting given that she and Lily come from the same game. Overall, it's a really good remix of that spell in my opinion. Just like the original feeds you lots of extra cherry points, balance energy comes to you in droves here. Whether you spend it on flash bombs or prolonged use of Discord is up to you. Arguments can be made for both. I also can't give a definitive recommendation, which does show how deep the gimmick is. Really, I don't think I've seen a more versatile system than Discord mode in a Touhou fan game. You can defend with it, score with it, farm with it. Also, EUB is a finely crafted game to accompany it. Are we going to make it? Or are we going to lose 3 lives in 2 seconds? No, of course not. That's impossible. And that's the run. So, how does EUB fare as a whole? Excellently. Seriously, this title is in the same league as the official games from Japan, as well as Fantastic Danmaku Festival 1 and 2 from China. Although it's not looking quite as gorgeous as the latter. I mentioned country names for a reason. Honestly, I would nominate this as the West's poster child when it comes to fan games. It's just that good, and yet underrated. Its Steam reviews are only in the double digits. Maybe you're hearing about this hidden gem for the first time. With that, I'm Geshe86, this was Ephemeral Unnatural Balance. Bis bald!